Probably help.
Mr. Baxter, look at
Hey,
that.
there he is. What's going on?
Look at that.
There we go. Connected to audio.
There we go.
Look
Do you
at
want me
that.
to put a headset in, or is that good?
Whatever works for you.
No, you sound fine.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, this works for us. We had Engelbert Humperdinck yesterday, and then today you. I mean, this is as good as it gets. So.
Well, in that case, I better hook up my.
He's gonna plug in the headphones.
Plug in the headphones. Let's do this.
There you go.
Let's make this official.
All right.
Yeah. Lead us off, Mr. White. Yeah.
Actually, if you could, maybe angle down your screen.
Oh yeah, because all we see is your nose.
Hold on a second here.
And just grab that laptop cover and bring it down towards you.
Zoom is good. Good.
So can you? I guess I can't hear you. So
yeah, we can hear you good. We can hear you great.
You can't hear us? Yes. Can you hear us now?
There you go. Hey, yes. Check 1, 2. Yes. There you go. All right. Well, look, let's get right into it. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Jeff Skunk Baxter's got his first ever solo record coming out, available June 17th via BMG. You can pre-order it now wherever you get your music. Lots of stuff to cover. Really stoked to talk to the one, the only, Jeff Skunk Baxter. How you doing, sir?
Well, thank you, sir. How are you?
Good.
We're good. We're good. First off, just real quick, obviously a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee. Dolly Parton just got inducted. It was announced today she's going to be joining the class of 2022. Of course, you performed with her. Any words for Dolly, and what was it like performing with her back in the day?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was my, I'd have to say it was my induction into, if I go to heaven, what I should expect, because working with Dolly Parton is like working with an angel. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and of course he was on that great song 9 to 5, which is as classic a song as you're ever gonna get.
I mean, come on, it's iconic.
Right. Totally.
When you were in that session, did you? I was just gonna say, when you were in that session, did you know that it was gonna be as big as it was?
No. Again, as a session guy, you go in, do what you got to do, and be as professional as obviously as you can. Well, once in a while, some artists you work with, that there's going to be a lot of energy behind it, but it was just fun. I had a great time.
Yeah. Was that one of the sessions where you had tons of fun in? Like, I'm sure you've had so many sessions over the years where it's just like blah.
Well, she brought cookies and cakes, and I mean, it was more like a party, and maybe like a reception and a party, and maybe we'll do a record.
Yeah. She had like a vibe going. Like, it was like kind of.
It's just wonderful.
I can imagine some artists are just about the business, and like she comes in with cakes and stuff, and it's like it does add to the funness of the session, I guess.
Well, she's so personable, and again, she's really like an angel. She's just a person that exudes wonderfulness and kindness and personality.
Right.
She does. Let me ask you this. Your new album, of course, Speed of Heat, comes out in June. It is 50 years since Can't Buy a Thrill with Steely Dan. It is your first solo album. Talk to me a little bit about waiting 50 years.
Well, let's see, 50 years since Can't Buy a Thrill, and then of course I was in a couple of other bands in between.
Yeah.
But I always thought that there was something slightly disingenuous about it. As soon as you leave a very successful band, you go out and make a solo album.
Right.
And number one, I just thought you might need some time to percolate, maybe like a good wine. And also busy time. I mean, between being a kind of a studio rat for so many years and producing records, and then doing a lot of guitar, not only guitar repair, but guitar customizing, and working with companies like Fender and Gibson and Roland. And plus my day job, I just really didn't have a lot of time. So I just thought I would wait. And it has been a labor of love, and it has been a long time coming. My music partner, CJ Vanston, who is the guy that I've been working with on this project, incredible musician. We look back at the track sheet, and the first track that we cut for this was 1989.
Right.
Wow.
So we're just sort of, now that the penny jar is full, now it's time to roll up the pennies and see what we got.
Let me ask you just one thing real quick about the being a studio musician. Back then, of course, there was you, and there was also Steve Lukather that was also on a lot of albums. Was there a sense of competition amongst all of the guitarists that were looking for between you and Steve and some of the others? Or did you have sort of your team and he had his team? And how did that work?
Well, I mean, there's always competition in the sense that there's 1,000 people trying to get that one spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I think is good because it weeds out the chaff and creates a situation where only the best get the job, frankly. And as far as competition between players, myself and Tim May and Luke and Jay Graydon and Mitch Holder and all the guys that we all did the sessions.
Yeah.
Not really. There's always the thing in the back of your mind that you always want to be 100%, 110% on.
Mm-hmm.
But no, as a matter of fact, it was quite a community, quite a close knit, tribe of studio loonies.
Right. Well, wasn't it also a difference in styles too? I mean, you had Michael Lando and you had Steve with the big Bradshaw racks and all those clean processed guitar tones. And I mean, like, there's so many different styles when it comes to session players. I mean, I don't think it would be competitive in the end because everybody has their own thing.
Well, you have your own thing as part of your portfolio, but you will also have to have a full quiver of capabilities across the board.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, take the 9 to 5. I mean, supposedly I'm a rock guitar player, but that was a country tune. And sometimes you just have to be able to do whatever it is. Did a lot of work with Tommy Tedesco, and he certainly schooled me in the art of, okay, they want a mandolin, grab your 12-string, put a capo on it, and then, play mandolin.
Right.
Have your capabilities in your pocket and right close by. So it's what you need. It's what's needed is most important.
I guess you just have to be as versatile as you possibly can in that situation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of noticed when we finished this album, to be able to play a number of different styles. 1 minute, play some rock. Next minute, play pedal steel. The next minute, be playing sort of a kind of a jazz fusion vibe. Yeah.
Right. I loved your version of Apache on this latest record. The guitar tone sounds great.
Oh, that was the whole impetus to do a solo record because I always wanted to record that song. I just love that song.
I mean, first of all, it's a classic dance floor filler, and then you just come and kind of reimagine it in a way. Talk about the arrangement and how you came up with the whole thing for it.
Well, I always loved the song as a kid. I remember when the Jorgen Ingemann version came out, and then the Shadows, and then the Ventures did it. It has a quiet elegance and it has a quiet power to it. Whoever wrote it, somehow or other, I think captured the nobility of the Apache. Mm-hmm. But it was muted and it was subtle. I thought, what the heck? In the same way as I did my old school, I thought, let's pump some energy into this. Yeah. And it holds up. I mean, it's amazing. And I just love the song. What can I say?
And your version's almost like a rock and western version of it too. It's good.
Well,
we always crack up here because I
lunacy, right?
I was gonna say we always crack up because I actually live on a native reservation. We're Mohawks over here, and whenever
Really?
we'd have like
Yeah.
whenever we'd have like an outside DJ come in, they'd always be like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not gonna play the Apache song for you guys." And we're like, "No, play it! Like we'll be packing the dance floor, jamming to that shit."
Please, right?
Oh, it's
It's
funny.
like that, and also, don't play Cherokee People.
Exactly.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Which is one of the coolest songs ever recorded.
Yeah. A white DJ comes in and plays Redbone, "Come and Get Your Love," and they're like, "I'm not racist." We're like, "No, we love it. Play it."
Yeah.
Let me just bring you back to being a session musician for a second. When you've played, of course, with Dal Bello, who's our great Canadian artiste up here. But when you're playing with Judy Collins and Rod Stewart and Steely Dan and Leo Sayer and Joe Cocker and Denise Willem, all these different genres and different styles, do they just hire Jeff to do Jeff? Or do you go in and learn something new? And does it make you a better guitarist at the end of the day? You go, you know what? Now I've been able to do a 9 to 5 song. Now I've been able to do something with Joe Cocker. Now I am Jeff, a much better, much more rounded guitarist. Or do you just do Jeff?
Yes.
Yes.
No. It depends again on what they call you for. One day you walk in, you've got a stack of music. Say you're doing a movie soundtrack. Everything is written. Everything is cued. That's what you do.
Right.
Sometimes you walk in, music's written out, and then there's 16 free bars, and they say, "We want you to play a solo." Like, well, I did the Donna Summer stuff, Hot Stuff and Bad Girls. And they said, "We want you to do what you do." Okay, that's fine too. Sometimes they don't know what they want.
Right.
And you dig down deep into your experience and say, let's see, I got an idea. Let's try this. And you don't do it with the only ego is to perform.
Right.
The other part of it is just to do your best to reach into your toolkit. So I'd say it's all of the above that you mentioned.
Was that you playing the clean guitar part on Hot Stuff Bad Girls?
I'm sorry?
Was that you playing the clean guitar part on like Bad Girls? Is that you?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Bad Girls was the first #1 record that ever had a guitar synthesizer on it. So
Right.
The solo on that is the prototype of the rolling guitar synthesizer. I brought it in, it was all on a piece of plywood, and I had the thing you put on cakes to keep the flies off, and I just brought the whole thing in. Giorgio wanted to try something new. But
wow. Damn, that's really cool. I mean, that's one of the songs. I mean, whenever I DJ a wedding or something, we have like a 12-minute mix of like the two, that's Hot Stuff and Bad Girls together. And like I always loved that solo in there. So it's interesting that was actual synthesizer.
Well, I did that on a guitar I bought for $35.
Wow.
So what the heck, that and a 6-pack of Bud and Fender Deluxe Reverb, and let's go.
Right. And it creates those iconic sounds. I mean, what more do you want?
Hey, it's just where you go. And you mentioned the thing about being a studio musician and the judgment. There's a story that I do like to tell. Gary Katz, who's a producer for Steely Dan, called me in for a session. He had recorded a young lady. He pretty much finished the record, but he said, "Skunk, I want you to come in, bring all your stuff. I'm going to play all this for you, and I want to make sure, tell me what we need," which again is calling on your judgment and experience. So I listened to the whole record. I said, "Gary, it's fine. You don't need anything." And he said, "That's why I pay you triple scale." So the idea is maybe there isn't anything. It's what you don't play sometimes. It's the spaces that you leave and the judgments that you make to leave room,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the greatest songs you've ever listened to, I mean, like the beauty is in the space between the tracks.
Well, the folks that do Latin music, they understand the clave. That is the whole thing. It's all wonderful if you want to, unload a bucket full of hemi, semi, demi quavers on people. I suppose that's nice. I'm not a big fan of guitar trampoline. I could do it, but it's not kind of my thing.
Right.
I think that what's most important is to leave room for the listener to get into what you're doing. I mean, you can push them away, with a huge tsunami of notes, or you can leave spaces for them to begin to interface with what you do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you look at a lot of the guitar players of the 80s. I mean, Eddie Van Halen's my favorite guitar player of all time, but I can only take so much of that crazy playing. I mean, I go listen to Dan Huff and I listen to Michael Landau and those really cool guitar parts from studio sessions that are, that stand out and just have that sound to them. Did you get caught up in the whole sort of gear slut guitar kind of angle? Like, did the gear sort of take over for you at one point?
Well, I'm a gear slut.
Yeah.
I used to build guitars. I worked with Dan Armstrong for many years. And to this day, everything I ever did is guaranteed for life. Cooch called me about a year ago, Danny Korchmar, and said, "Remember that Telecaster you did for me back in 1963? Yeah." I said, "Well, Fender screwed it up. So can you put it back to the way you did it?" Sure. Fine. Absolutely. So as definitely a gear slut, a guitar maniac, because I love the instrument. The work that I did with Roland, guitar synthesizer, the stuff I did with Fender and Gibson.
Yeah.
Probably more of a gear slut than most folks.
Right. And I mean, talking about guitars, I mean, Leo kind of perfected it like right off the bat with the Strats and the Tellys. I mean, how do you feel guitars have progressed over time with manufacturing construction wise?
Well, certainly back in the day when I was working on 48th Street at Jimmy's, right across from Manny's, and this is back in the 60s, you could buy a brand new Fender Stratocaster for $295 with the case.
Damn.
Now you can buy a brand new Squier Fender Stratocaster for $295 with the case.
Right.
What has advanced is the capability to build a quality instrument and not break the bank, to make that kind of capability and quality available to a lot of folks.
Right.
On the other hand, there is the whole vintage gear, if it doesn't have 7,221.5 windings of number 41 wire and have an impedance of 5.2K and the Gauss on the Alnico 5s. I mean, all, okay, that's all.
It doesn't have this type of lube on the potentiometer.
Absolutely. And, I'm fine for that too, because ultimately, there's sometimes when I don't want to rent just a car. I want to go out and get a 1966 GTO with a 383, power pack.
Yeah, exactly.
High power. So I think there's something to be said for both sides. I think golfers are the same way with their golf clubs. I think there are a number of people who have things that whatever it is, they inspire them.
Right.
Now, I did have 1 million guitars. I had about 400 guitars, and John Entwistle had about 500. And one night at the Rainbow, I said to him, we're like little kids. You used to press your face up against the glass of the music store, and maybe someday I can get a Fender Stratocaster, but we went overboard, and we decided at that time actually to get rid of everything, because why have a beautiful instrument that nobody's playing?
Right.
So to me, there's something weird about collecting a lot of guitars, because they should be played. It's like artwork. Do you store it in the attic, or do you put it up on your wall, so people can see it?
Yeah, I completely agree.
I don't know. That's just my.
Well, listen, you look
take.
at Brad Gillis or Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick. They've got hundreds of guitars, and I think they just sort of store them for posterity purposes. But hey,
yeah, I don't know. Again, everybody has their own thing.
Let me quickly ask you about this. When we think of rock stars have had 50 years careers, we think of maybe they want to retire, maybe they want to just take it easy. They're just great musicians. But you have this secondary career as a missile defense expert. Explain that to me. How does Jeff go from playing with Steely Dan and Dolly Parton to now working for the Department of Defense?
Well, the thumbnail story is I wrote a paper on converting a Navy weapon system, the Aegis weapon system, which is an air defense carrier battle group and air defense system
Right.
to defend against air breathers, meaning aircraft and things that use air for their propulsion systems.
Right.
And so I had spent a lot of time reading defense magazines anyway, especially because I was looking to the defense industry for cutting edge technologies for the work I was doing with the musical instrument companies. We were just beginning to get into digital technology, new ways to store data, to move data, to process it in the digital world.
Right.
And the defense contractors, defense companies were cutting edge. I mean, that was where the universities, the national labs, and the Department of Defense, DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project agency. So as I began to read this stuff, I began to sort of put something together in the back of my mind. And then I spoke when I was in England with Nick Cook. Nick Cook was the great guy. He was the senior editor, aviation editor for Jane's Defense Weekly, which was a magazine that I was reading as well at the time.
Right.
And he gave me some
defense.
information about tracking the space shuttle with an S-band radar. The S-band is that particular frequency band that the U.S. Navy uses for Aegis. And so I thought if you track the space shuttle, I wonder if you could track a warhead. So I went to a couple of buddies of mine at JPL, said, I got some math I need you to do for me. And they did it. And they said, this is kind of weird. What we found is whatever you're looking to do, track something that's moving at 17,500 miles an hour and has this particular radar cross section, you can do it. What are you doing? And I said, I'll get back to you. So I wrote the paper, handed it to a congressman friend of mine who gave it to the vice chairman of the Armed Services Committee, who then called my congressman friend Dana and said, what is this guy with Raytheon or Lockheed? No, he's a guitar player for the Doobie Brothers. So I get a call from Kurt Weldon saying, hey, would you accept the position on the Armed Services Committee to do missile defense? Wow. And then it just started from there. I've been involved in a number of things, everything from the technology to wargaming to unconventional warfare. And it's been a great run. And then in 1993, after the first attack on the World Trade Center, I got a call from the intelligence community saying, hey, we now think that law enforcement and the intelligence community needs to talk to each other. We might have been able to prevent this. We have plenty of spooks, but no cops. And I was with LAPD Reserve at the time on their anti-terrorism committee. And I had all the clearances based on the missile defense stuff. So I said, sure. So I've been involved in serving my country since 93.
93. Let me ask you two questions. You mentioned that part of this was for music technology. You wanted to see how we could get more technology into music. Now that we have the Pro Tools and all this stuff, is that how you prefer to record now? Or are you still sort of like, you know what, going into the studio and laying it live is probably still the best way? Are you sort of full technology when it comes to recording? Or is there a sort of a romantic approach of doing it old school?
A love affair with tape.
Yeah.
I don't have a protocol.
Okay.
Again, it's whatever makes sense at the time. I think I'm not a big fan of digital recording in a sense. I think it's going to be a long way before we ever get to the point where your brain can actually decode the inherent problems with the way that a digital recording reproduces music. But on the other hand, it certainly is a very fast, efficient way to record. It's got great dynamic range. It's like word processing. You can move very quickly, do a lot. Right. So, I don't have a preference. Sure, would I like to sit in the studio with a 2-inch tape, 24-track machine, with tube amplifiers and stuff? Yes, because there's no doubt about, your slut or not, that there is a very, very huge difference between the way those different technologies reproduce music and the way your brain decodes it.
No, totally. And it's
But
funny, like you look at like a normal, like just a 192 from Avid. I mean, like Mutt Lang was one of the first guys to go to a company and say, "Hey, could you modify this to make it sound less harsh and like the mids and all these things?" And it's like you got companies like Black Lion Audio doing fully modified 192s, and I mean, you can just basically take a run of the mill uh, interface at this point and get them modified to try and sound a little bit better. There's,
well,
it's
it's
almost
really
like
all about the sampling rate. Until you get the sampling rate to be infinite, you can slice an orange into thinner and thinner pieces, but it's still not an orange. As a matter of fact, from I recall, there was an experiment at Stanford University many years ago where they played digital and analog versions of music to small babies and to adults that had Alzheimer's and some different mental challenges. And when they played the digital versions, the babies started to cry and the adults began to rock back and forth. They played the analog versions, the babies went to sleep, and the adults were calmed down. So there's no doubt in my mind about the difference, but we do what we do.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Mitch when I put on Post Malone versus Van Halen.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Just real quick, Jeff Skunk Baxter, first ever solo record, Speed of Heat, coming out June 17th. You can pre-order it now wherever you get your music. Of course, we mentioned Eddie Van Halen. Back in the 70s, you worked with Ted Templeman. You were kind of like the guy that brought in Michael McDonald. You were kind of responsible for them. Of course, they worked with Michael later on in the 84 record. Just at the time when Ted Templeman was going to be working with Van Halen, did he ever talk about them in the studio? And as a guitar player, like, what did you think of Eddie Van Halen when he hit the scene?
Well, I thought Eddie was a genius. He was a brilliant guitar player. He had that perfect combination of technique, imagination, love for improvisation, injected with a bit of thermonuclear energy. And I don't know, it was hard to beat.
Right?
Yeah,
Did you
really
see
was.
him as like competition? Like, did you have to up your game as a performer?
I don't think I ever thought about it that way.
Right.
I mean, I guess the question was, why would I need to up my game? I got more work than I can do.
Yeah.
I'm a happy guy. I'm playing in a bunch of different bands, and frankly, a lot of my concentration went into pedal steel because I just think that's the greatest stringed instrument ever invented by mankind,
Right.
in the whole
Gorgeous.
universe. So I never felt like I was competing with anybody.
Yeah.
There's a healthy desire to certainly hone your craft and to be capable among your peers. And any studio musician would think that, but no, I never felt, as a matter of fact, I remember getting on stage in Japan one time with, oh gosh, the Paganini of guitar players. Help me here.
Oh,
Trying to think.
jeez.
That's a lot of people. Pagliaro.
No,
Pagliaro.
I'll think of it in a second. Dutch guitar player.
Michael Schenker? No, Schenker. Is he Dutch or
German.
he's German? Who's Dutch?
Or Swedish, or
Yngwie Malmsteen.
yes, there you
There you
go.
go.
There you go.
Yngwie. And because he invited me on the stage to play, and I went, sure. Well, the man is he is the Paganini of guitar players. I mean, this man his capabilities are beyond most human beings. So the question is, now it's my turn. What am I going to do?
Right.
So I thought about it for a second, stepped out, and I guess we were there was a kind of a pause. So I just bent the G string up a whole tone and held it.
Just
and then I held it
the
some
whole
more.
time.
And then I held it some more.
Oh,
And now the tension has been, then I held it a little bit more. And now the audience is starting to react, and I held it a little bit more. And after a while, they're on their feet screaming. It's all about how you approach the situation. There's many different ways to do it.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is great. That is great. Oh, I want to finish on one last question, and it is sort of the silly question of the day. But being a defense consultant and the military and stuff, and doing the outer space and all, have we been visited by aliens? Have we?
I really have no comment.
That's a yes.
I do think that there is a slight disconnect between what people think a UFO is.
Right.
I would posit, and I would tell people maybe to go back and look at their history, because after World War II, the technology that came out of Germany was very advanced, swept wing aircraft.
Yep.
And when Operation Paperclip brought over Werner von Braun and his team, they were responsible ultimately for creating the Saturn V rocket and getting, the United States to the moon. So what, and again, I have to be very careful here in terms of, what I can talk about.
Right.
But let's just say that what you see or what people see may be manifestations of advanced technologies that existed or were invented by human beings and not piloted by little green men from outer space. That said, if we do live in an infinite universe, there is no argument that there has to be another many forms of life, because again, if it's infinite, there has to be everything, and if there has to be everything, then there isn't nothing.
Right.
There
right.
is, yeah.
Right, and if we came to be, then somebody somewhere else or something somewhere else has to come to. Anyway, it's one of those.
Well, you just replace oxygen in a carbon-based life form. You just replace the oxygen with silicon, and it works out very well.
Yeah.
It's different, but it works out very well.
There you go, Jeremy.
Wow, geez. This was incredibly interesting. This is super fun. Skunk Baxter, Speed of Heat. You can pre-order it now, coming out on June 17th, wherever you get your music. You going to do the vinyl and the CD and the whole thing, or are you going to stick to the iTunes and streaming?
Vinyl comes out in September. We did a double album. We couldn't figure out what to take off vinyl, because you're limited, obviously, by the mechanics of vinyl.
Yeah.
And the record company said, well, then let's just do a double album. And
Perfect.
we said, thank you. So it'll be out in September.
So you're going to do the whole.
So all you tube gear analog freaks out there, with your Shure cartridges and your Dynakit tube preamps and your all your Macintosh tube amps and your JBL 4311s will have a treat.
Perfect.
Mitch is still the CD guy, so there you go.
CD is the greatest technology ever for music. I'm just going to say that.
Pretty cool. No, it's very cool, especially the dynamic range. I mean, you have to be careful when you master a record for vinyl, because you can actually make mistakes and the needle will jump right out of the grooves.
Right.
I mean, there's something about dragging a rock across a piece of plastic that has certain limitations, I guess. And the CD has a wonderful dynamic range.
And as you get to that last track on the vinyl, it starts losing some of that fidelity, because they're stretching the, it's not as precise as a CD.
Oh yeah, it's very mechanical,
Yep. So there you go. Thank you, sir. Absolute pleasure. And please, let's do this again if you anytime.
Well, I really appreciate your hospitality. Thanks for having me on. And I hope folks enjoy the record. I certainly, I guess we call it a record. But yes, I enjoyed the recording project.
Perfect bien. Way to put it.
As we say in Montreal, merci bien. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. It was great to meet you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, perfect.